town has a ghost story that's been passed down through the generations. But what if those legends were true? My name is Miranda Young, and I'm the Ghost Biker. Hey everyone, happy Thursday, happy July 6th. We're so glad to be here. We're here in the historic and very haunted historic Scott County Jail. I am your host, the Ghost Biker, and you're here for the next hour on the Ghost Biker Garage Live. So hopefully here very soon, we'll be back in the garage. But in the meantime, we're here at the jail with my co-host, Miss Sally, who is wanting to show her better half here on the screen. But we love doing the podcast from here at the jail because you just never know what will happen. And we definitely suggest keep your eyes open because sometimes you hear things, see things behind me. So if you do, please definitely let me know. But we got a special show tonight and can't wait to bring these guys on. But I want to take just a few minutes to talk about some of the news and some of the different things that we've got going on here. My business partner, she is actually over at Historic Rugby. She's doing a lantern tour tonight. Hopefully the rain held off long enough for her to get through the tour there and show these folks some of the really cool things that we've got going on over there at Rugby. And hopefully it's shaping up to be a nice night over there. We've also opened up flashlight tours as well as guided ghost hunts for July and August here at the historic Scott County Jail. We've pretty well got a booked up month for private paranormal investigations, but we do have just a couple days open on here in July. I know definitely some Sundays and Fridays, and I think maybe a few Thursdays here and there, but I think all of our Saturdays are pretty well booked up for the next 2 months. And we're looking into the fall here, trying to get those dates booked. So if you're looking for something really cool to do and you're here in the Scott County area, northern Tennessee, southern Kentucky, definitely come check us out. Book yourself an investigation here at the jail, as well as Historic Rugby. We did have our first overnight paranormal investigation at Historic Rugby this past weekend, and it proved to be a pretty active night over there. So we really appreciate Scope Paranormal out of East Tennessee for coming and doing the investigation. And if you want more information on that, you can find that under historyhighwayshaunts.com, as well as the historic Scott County Jail. And also just look up Historic Rugby After Dark for more information on that. But we've got some really cool events that are coming up, some really cool Ghost Biker events. Here we are. We just had July 4th. We're kind of on the downhill slope heading toward Halloween, one of the next big holidays that's coming up here. So just want to kind of talk about a few events that we've got coming up. We will actually be closed here at the jail starting next Thursday through the next Tuesday. So we will be closed for the Gettysburg Battlefield Bash that I'm going to be speaking at on July 14th through the 16th. So this is a true honor. Just back last year about this time, I did have Miss Pam Berry, who's one of the hosts there at the Gettysburg Battlefield Bash, and I was invited to be a speaker. And let me see if I can actually pull this up, make this just a little bit larger so you guys can see. This is a schedule of the events. I will be speaking at 4:30 on Friday the 14th. And this event is awesome because there are so many paranormal investigators that are here. And the funds from this event does go to support the Wounded Warrior Foundation, which is a great foundation that deserves every penny that this event can raise for it. Now, they do have speakers going on all day, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. So definitely come check this out. It is at the Wyndham up in Gettysburg. And of course, It's Gettysburg. So, it's going to be a really fantastic event. I know they've got a lot of really great things on the schedule for this. So, like I said, I'll be speaking at 4:30 on Friday. I'll be there representing Ghost Biker Explorations, as well as talking about the historic Scott County Jail and historic Rugby After Dark. So come on out, say hi to me, listen to my presentation at 4:30, and come in and support a great cause and meet some of these great speakers out here. Also, another exciting event that let me see if I can get this pulled up here. Another event that's going to be coming up very, very quick, and that is the Deep South Paracomic-Con. And this is their second annual event. It's going to be in Ozark, Alabama, and it's August 19th and 20th. And I'm very excited to be invited back and to be representing some of these great speakers that are here in the area. There's a list of the guests. If you go to deepsouthparacomiccon.com, you can find tickets, you can find the guests, the speakers, the panels. They've got a lot of varieties of tickets that you can get for this event. It was so much fun last year, and it's guaranteed to be a great event this year. So definitely go on there, check that out. Like I said, that's August 19th and 20th. And I know they've got a huge list of speakers for that as well. So I don't think they've announced the times that the speakers will be speaking on it, but you can go keep an eye on that. You can also find it on Facebook. And so that's just two great events that's coming up. I know we've got a lot of different events that's coming up here in the fall, but those are the ones that's coming up pretty quick on us, as well as season 6 of Ghost Biker Explorations. We're working hard to finish up filming on that, as well as editing of the episodes. Can't say a whole lot about this season yet, other than we're trying to make it a good one, take it back to traditional Ghost Biker Explorations that people have seen from the past 5 seasons, hopefully a little bit more like the past earlier seasons. So really, really excited about that, and that will be here very quickly before we know it. All of the episodes will come out every Tuesday during the month of October, and will be followed by a Thursday Behind the Screams, where we'll be diving deep into each of the episodes and talking about the techniques, the locations, and some of the data and evidence that we were able to capture during the investigations. Go back, catch up on all the past 5 seasons, either on the Ghost Biker Explorations Facebook page, YouTube channel, or www.ghostbikerexplorations.com. So, want to say hello real quick to a few folks who are on here. Thank you all so much for taking the time tonight to tune in. We did have an investigation come up last week, so we weren't able to do the show, but we have rescheduled Jessica York, who will be on here on the 20th. So hopefully you guys will tune back in for that. But hello to Miss Susan. Hello, Mr. Ronnie Anderson. Jen Alm from out in Arizona. Thank you so much for watching. Miss Nancy Weems. Hello. Alex Lau. Sonia Thompson, and all the others that are on here watching. Thank you so much. If you have any questions for tonight's guest, please feel free to put those here in the comments. And if you don't mind, please put them in all caps, so that as we're going through and having our conversation, we'll be able to pull you up and not miss your comments. So I want to go ahead and let me pull this up here, but I want to go ahead and get to tonight's guests. I had the honor of being on the Phantom History podcast I think it was actually last month, with my business partner, Dr. Christy Sumner. We were on talking about our teams, Ghost Biker Explorations, Soul Sisters Paranormal, as well as the historic Scott County Jail. And I just really fell in love with the show and with what these guys are doing. So I was very excited whenever they said that they would join me on the show tonight. So I'm going to go ahead and welcome my guests, Mr. Steve Blanchard and Tim Hensley. Hey, guys.
Hello. Good to see you.
Yeah, thank you so much for taking the time to come on with us tonight.
Of course, I appreciate it. And I echo that. I really enjoyed talking to you and Christy for the Phantom History episode that you two helped me out with. It was so fascinating, and I could have talked to you both forever. There's so much information there.
There really is. And, that's what I really like about your show. And we'll get into the show here in a few minutes. But I just got to say, I really, really enjoyed your style and the way you put your episodes together. You do a very thorough deep dive into the locations and cover some very cool locations at that. Some that are maybe a little more off the beaten path.
Thank you, and I love doing that. I like it's like your own little discovery mission. Finding these places that of course, I'm not discovering them, but not a lot of people know about them, and that makes it so much fun to kind of educate myself while I'm educating others. And I was a former journalist. I was a print journalist for 16 years, so I used those skills to ask the questions that I don't think a lot of people would ask.
Absolutely. So let's kind of start with your all's background and where you guys are located and what we're on here to talk about, the Phantom History House as well as the podcast.
Okay, sure. I'll let you go ahead and speak to that.
Sure. Well, Steve's podcast is the Phantom History Podcast, and the Phantom History House is a bed and breakfast here in Tampa, Florida, Tampa Bay area of Florida, actually in the West Chase area, right near Oldsmar. We're about 10 miles from the beach, sort of near the airport, not too far from Busch Gardens or downtown. So we are here, a paranormally themed bed and breakfast that ties into the Phantom History Podcast.
Yeah, and we're in a agricultural area, but we are in a neighborhood. So it's interesting. So we're not necessarily in a historic district or anything quite like that, but we have made the house into kind of a modern Victorian Gothic atmosphere. So when people come and stay here, they get a chance to kind of immerse themselves in that world, talk ghost stories in our Victorian library, have breakfast in our potion room, or they can stay in a themed bedroom upstairs. And we have 4 different what we call bed chambers where they can get a good night's sleep. So if they want to sleep in the Ouija board room, for example, they can immerse themselves in that space. And each room has its own private bathroom as well. So everybody has their own spot upstairs.
Nice. And so we're going to kind of cycle through video that you guys have put out there. And I just got to say, guys, these gentlemen have a lot of videos out there from the podcast that you can catch up on, as well as videos from the location or from the bed and breakfast that people can spend a lot of time going back and kind of catching up on. But just kind of talk us through this video here.
Sure. We're going upstairs right now in the video to the 4 sleeping chambers. That's our Ouija board room, which is our largest room with a king bed. You can see a special planchette table that was made. That's our cemetery room with a painted mural on the wall. That's the castle room with all the candles, 4-poster bed. And then there's a deck on the back, which 2 of the rooms have access to. You can see the property is very private. And here's a little clip of our portrait room, which is full of portraits and all about those amenities. So we're a very high-end, sort of nice, comfortable place to stay that happens to have a paranormal theme. But like I said, we'd love for people to come here, tell their ghost stories. It's amazing, Miranda, I guess you know this too, but every time Steve comes back from doing one of his ghost tours or talking to someone, or even when people come to stay at the house, they immediately want to start telling us, well, when I was a little kid, I lived in a house. Let me tell you what happened there. It's really interesting hearing those stories.
Do you find that a lot of the guests will kind of, as they're either at breakfast or gathered around the fireplace, that they'll share their stories with each other?
Absolutely. And that's been a lot of fun too, because we've had a very diverse clientele come through here. I mean, you've had like these hard rockers who work in bars and nightclubs, and this other couple who was more about farmers market style people, and no judgment on either, but it was just interesting to see those 2 different worlds gather around the breakfast table and share their stories and exchange phone numbers and hopefully form a new friendship. And that's what I love about this place. It's like a safe place for everybody to share that common love of paranormal and ghost stories. Our guest is here.
Oh, and we've got a surprise booking at the last minute, and someone is here, and so I have to step away and greet that guest. So Steve, carry on.
Hey, that's a good thing.
And we've got
we've got Nancy Weems here who says, "Wait, what? I'm in Tampa."
Hey, Nancy.
Yes. So if somebody wanted to, do you ever offer like tours or anything of the house?
Absolutely. If somebody wants to come by and see the house and say, you know what, I'd like to stay here, but I don't know what room I'd want to be in, or I'm just curious, absolutely. You can email us or message us through our website, and just let us know when works for you, and we will arrange, to show you the house. We've had some folks who have done that, and then they've gone ahead and said, oh, okay, well, I'm going to book my birthday party here for whatever date. And then they go ahead and secure the house for that. And of course, we're expecting the Halloween season to be a little crazy here. We have a lot of stuff planned for that too. But yeah, we're more than happy to show people what we've built here.
Nice. And I just saw on your Facebook page where you guys have an event coming up this Saturday.
We do. It's going to be very interesting. We have a friend of ours who is a Salem, Massachusetts witch. His name's Brian Kowalski. He goes by Mama. And he's been here, I think, 3 times before. And he does readings throughout the day from noon until about 7. And we bring in a lot of different psychics and mediums to do different kinds of readings because everybody has their own preferences. Mm-hmm. But what he's doing later that evening at 7:30 is we're doing an open seance in our dining room. And this will be the second time we've done this. And it's like $20 to sit at the table, and he will conduct an actual seance. And it's almost like a group reading where he'll share messages of whatever he may get. And I have to say, the last time he was here that he did that, I asked permission to kind of hide out in a corner and watch because it was a private event. And they're like, oh, sure, you're fine. And I was fascinated by how well it went and how on he was and watching people's reactions.
Wow, I'm sure.
Yeah.
So, so it's just to be clear, it's not a haunted house, as in like a haunted attraction.
Correct. Nothing's going to pop out. We don't have any jump scares, anything like that. Like I told you before we went on, the joke is, you can pay me more to hide under your bed, but I'm probably not going to do it. Now, do we have hauntings here? I think there's a couple of things here. We've seen some stuff, but the psychics and mediums who have been here, investigators who have been here have all said that everything is very bright, very light, and seems to be enjoying what we're doing here. So we are not a haunted attraction, but we may have some spirits who like to hang out here.
Very nice.
Yeah.
And do you find that after some of these mediums are here and having, these seances and stuff, that it sometimes brings out more activity?
It does. And I love this story because after the last seance that we had, when I was sitting in the corner, like I said, just kind of hanging out, and Brian paused and he looked over at me. He said, oh, this one's for you. And I was like, I'm not even participating. I'm just kind of like the host watching this. And he said he had already told us that there was a spirit of a little boy in our house who enjoys our fish tank. And he had shared his name with us. And he said, but there's a little girl in this dining room who wants permission to go play with him. Can she? And I said, of course, she's absolutely. And before I could even get that out of my mouth, he's like, oh, I hear her running up the steps, and that room is going to be crazy tonight. This house is going to be very active, but they're up there playing right now. And he pointed up to the cemetery room. Well, that night we had 2 couples who were spending the night that night. One was in the cemetery room. The other couple was in the Ouija board room, and they shared that deck out back that you saw in that video. The next morning, the husband comes downstairs from the cemetery room, and I asked him, how did you sleep? We always joke, did you sleep like the dead? He said, well, we slept really well, but I have to say we had the crap scared out of us at about 1 o'clock in the morning because the rack that we have as a clothes rack up there fell off the wall. Now, this heavy iron thing had been hanging there for 7 months. I installed it myself. They didn't even have anything hanging on it. And at first I was apologetic, saying, oh, I'm so sorry that, your sleep got disturbed. And I went, wait a minute. That's where he was pointing. He said, that's exactly what I thought. It was so cool. So when I went, after our guest left, and I went up and hung it back on the wall, I had a conversation with those spirits and said, listen, you're more than welcome to play in the house, make yourself at home, but don't make more work for me. Don't knock anything off the walls. And we haven't had a problem since.
Very nice. Now, is there a room that's more popular than the others between your guests that come?
There's 2 that are probably equally popular, and it depends on the vibe they're going for. If somebody wants a lot of space, the Ouija board room is really popular. It's the largest room. It has the king size bed and that deck. But if a couple's looking for like a romantic getaway, they really like the castle room. It has a 4-poster bed. It has a fake wolf fur comforter, and it's lined with remote control candles. So you can do the whole flickering romantic vibe if you want. And it has a really cool shower in there too that has like a slate wall on it that will let you, excuse me, that kind of ties into the whole castle theme. And yeah, right there has some tapestries.
Okay.
So yeah, the whole vibe. And this is probably the least paranormal of the rooms. because we wanted to go with the castle vibe, and every room has a book, and you'll see over there that's Dracula sitting, of course, next to the bed. But in this room, in that bathroom that we're going into now, there's a photo on the left of the Brown Lady of Raynham Manor in the United Kingdom, which you probably have heard of and read about. It's allegedly the very first apparition ever caught on film. So we wanted to put her in that space. And one of our psychic friends who came over was touring the house and went in there, and she said that she got a lot of energy off of that photo. So that was fascinating. And here you'll see every room has a TV, but they're all tucked away. So we didn't want to take away from the vibe of the room. But, if you want to get on Hulu and stream Bob's Burgers, you can, or you can completely ignore it and engross yourself in the paranormal and Gothic feel.
I love that. And, judging by, because you guys have got different videos out there showing either tours of the rooms or talking about the different areas in your advertisements and stuff. I love the touches and the fine detail that you all have put into this to really make it a very cool experience for your guests.
Thank you. And it was so much fun pulling that together. I mean, we'll have guests who will be here 2 or 3 days. And on the third day, they'll be like, I never noticed that before. And they'll point to something in the library, or they'll point to a light switch that's a little bit different than what you would find in a typical home. And we really enjoy that. And we are constantly looking at ways to kind of change the vibe here, find new interesting things. So if somebody does come back and visit again, there may be something here that wasn't here on their previous visit.
And let me ask you I'm going to pull up your Facebook page here, because I also really like the fact you guys are very active online with not only your podcast, but things that are going on there at the Phantom History House. I mean, you just create a great vibe and a great experience for people. If somebody's wanting to do the psychic reading with Brian this Saturday, or any other events that you guys have, do they have to be staying at the house? Are these events that they can attend, or do they have to have a room to be staying there?
They do not have to be staying here as a guest. These are open to the public. So if somebody wanted to book with Brian and they're not staying on site, they just, reserve the time that they would want. And if you go to our website, phantomhistory.com/events, you can see everything we have going, and then that's where you can reserve. I will say there are times that guests will get a discount on events that we're holding. So, for example, I'm going to be launching a ghost tour very soon here in Oldsmar. And guests who stay here, I believe, get like half off of that. Some other events are included if they're staying here as well, to kind of thank our guests for staying in the rooms as well. But they certainly do not have to be staying here to enjoy some of the cool stuff we have coming through.
Very nice. And Sonia, definitely need to make it down to Tampa and check out. This sounds like this would be right up your alley, Sonia.
We would love to have you, Sonia. And, like I was sharing early, it's interesting. It's like Halloween here all the time. But here we are in the middle of early July, and it's hot out. People aren't really thinking about that. But when they come into the house, they kind of leave all of that behind. You leave politics, you leave work, you leave family drama, whatever, and you come into this place, you kind of like transport yourself. And one of the things they always laugh about is they'll come down the road. We're at the end of a dead end road, which is perfect for what we want to do. And they're like, I wasn't really sure I was going to the right place until I saw the Grim Reaper and the gigantic skeleton near the door. I'm like, yes, that's how you know you found the right place.
Nice. I bet, and I guess those stay up year round.
Absolutely. Yes. And we debated, do we decorate them for different holidays, things like that. And we decided, you know what? No, this is a paranormal themed home. That's what we're going to keep these as. And tomorrow morning, actually, there's a video going out. We had to redress our Grim Reaper because he has been out there since October last year. And, Florida sun and weather is pretty rough. So we stripped him down and put on a new robe, and he looks way better now. So we did like a fast forward video of all that craziness and the heat. So it's been a lot of fun to maintain everything.
Very nice. And just going on to the website here, it is phantomhistory.com. We've got all this information in the show notes. So hopefully people will go and check this out. But I love that you've got a lot of different events on the schedule here.
Well, we do. And one of our newest events, which has been very successful, is the book club that you're looking at now. We're both huge readers, always have been. And we would always talk about, this is a great place. If somebody wanted to have their book club, somebody should have their book club here. We had this conversation 15 times and it hit us. We should start a book club. so we did. And we're only one month old. We've read one book. We read H.P. Lovecraft's Call of Cthulhu, which I always say incorrectly. And we do short stories because everybody's so busy, but it's all in that genre of horror, sci-fi, gothic. So right now we're reading The Gingerbread Girl by Stephen King, and we have people here in person. We'll have, some drinks and some cheesecakes. Tim's an excellent baker. Or if they aren't local or can't make it, we do a virtual version as well. So people can log in on Zoom. We all get in our corners and we talk about what we saw. And we've had, last time we had somebody from up in Virginia join us, so it's open to everybody and it's free. All you have to do is find the story, on your own.
Okay. Yeah. And so if somebody is interested in doing that, do they just need to go onto, let's see, let me go back.
Yeah. If you click on either of those links, it just, it's like a ticket. It's free. It just reserves your spot and sends your email to us so that we can send you details on what we're doing and remind you like the day of that, we'll see you tonight at this time, just for us to connect. And it also puts you on our newsletter, which you can always opt out of if you want, where we do reminders as well. But it gives us an idea of who to expect and who to prepare for.
Oh, that's wonderful.
And Mr. Bones there is showing up in all of our photos all the time. So that poor guy is outside most of the time, but we bring him in for photo ops.
Nice. And I recently just saw where you all were online getting Halloween decorations.
Yes, we are. They're out there, and I've been a Halloween nut my entire life, and thank goodness, Tim is learning to accept that and has embraced that. So yeah, we went to At Home, which is a huge retailer down here in Florida. I don't know where else they are, and their Halloween stuff was already showing up. So we stocked up on a few things already because we're going to launch our Halloween season in early September. So we want to get everything out there. And we had a huge Halloween party back in April. So that was a big success too. And we brought in the Tampa Bay Sanderson sisters who impersonate the Hocus Pocus witches. And they did a couple of numbers and mingled with the crowd. It was fantastic. And we're going to bring them back again October 21st.
Oh, wonderful. That sounds like so much fun. And looks like we've got some people on here from Manchester, England, as well as Riverview, Florida. Thank you all so much for tuning in with us tonight. So let's kind of talk briefly about, let's talk about that ghost tour that you're getting ready to launch coming up here in September.
Sure. So we are technically in Tampa, Hillsborough County, but we're on the line of Pinellas County, which is where Oldsmar, Florida is, which is, a lot of people drive past it. You blink and you miss it. But there's a lot of history there. And the whole point of the Phantom History podcast and starting all of this is I love how the past and the paranormal collide. And that's actually one of the taglines we use. So I have spoken to a lot of homeowners here in Oldsmar. They actually came over, sat in the library, shared their story. I've talked to the city government over there to be an official tour. Where it's going to be about a mile or so walking tour through Oldsmar, which dates back to 1918, so a little over 100 years. It's not super old, and nothing in Florida really is super old. You have to hunt for it. Everything gets bulldozed, unfortunately. But there are so many haunted homes here in Oldsmar, which shocked me, and a couple of haunted buildings that I wanted to learn the stories about. So as part of our Halloween celebration and with the cooler weather, we will launch these tours. A friend of mine named Ginger, who is a local real estate agent, has sold a lot of these homes, and she's going to be one of our tour guides as well. So she and I are going to give tours of Oldsmar. This is one of those situations where if you stay at the house, it's either included or half off. I think it's included. And, we're going to encourage anybody who goes on the ghost tour to come back to Phantom History House afterwards. And if you have stories you want to share, you're welcome to do that. And it's been amazing that we had the conversation with all of these homeowners in the house. And at first you could tell they were a little bit nervous, like, what is this guy doing? And he's going to laugh at us because nobody believes in this stuff. And by the end, they all bonded. They didn't all know each other. They all knew that they were in this together. And I feel so thankful that they trust me with their stories to be able to share those on these tours. And before we officially launch, I'm actually going to take all of those homeowners on the tour and say, did I get it right? Is this what you told me? I mean, your story was 45 minutes. I have to tell it, all these in an hour. Did I hit the high points? So I'm excited for us to do those test runs and see their response.
Very cool. And so are they just running through the month of September or the cooler months?
Yeah, they're going to go through, right now we're scheduled through September and October.
Okay.
If it goes really well, which we're hoping it will, it'll probably continue onward after that. And usually, I was a ghost tour guide before in historic Tampa, our area called Ybor City, as well in downtown Tampa pre-pandemic. And so I really enjoy doing that. Whenever I travel, I take a ghost tour. That's how I learn the history of where I'm going, because I'm so fascinated. So if it's well received, and if the city likes what we're doing, it could continue longer and probably go into like March or April before the next round of crazy Florida heat hits. And then we'd probably go on hiatus again.
Yeah. And that's kind of what we've tried to do here in our area with historic rugby, and then also with here at the jail. Of course, at the jail, we're climate controlled, but of course, and our months are a little bit reversed there with yours. In the cold months, it's a little bit harder, except we do our Christmas walks. But we're finding that ghost walks are always in season, and people who are traveling to the area, same kind of thing that you said. They love just diving in, finding out that history, just kind of seeing it in a different light by hearing those ghost stories and about the paranormal.
Absolutely. And when you tie in those interesting historic facts to go along with the paranormal, I love it when you get that look on somebody's face that they're like, oh, I had no idea. And one of the things we do here at the house is as an add-on is we'll do ghost stories in the library. And we did that with a birthday party not too long ago. And some of the stories that I've been working on for the Oldsmar tour, I'm like, this is a great chance for me to test them. And the reactions were fantastic. And I was like, okay, this is going to work for this. Now the trick is, these are the stories for the street. These are the stories for the library. You don't want people to, hear the same story over and over, but it's amazing how many of those stories are here.
Yeah, absolutely. And that we kind of have that same sort of struggle when people come in during the day. We don't want to tell them all of our stories because we want them to come back for the flashlight tour here at the jail. And I know at rugby, I was talking to one of the daytime tour guides. He doesn't really tell a lot of the haunting stories. He saves that for people who want to join the haunted tour at night. But we try to tie in some of the history just so people can kind of tie back to know why the stories are happening why the happenings are happening the way they are.
Absolutely. And, Florida, I love it here. I've lived here for 23 years, but we are a very weird state. It's weird stuff happens here. And, I see that Nancy in the comments mentioned, Ybor City and the chicken sanctuary. We have chickens that just run through Ybor City, and they're descendants of Cuban immigrants who brought those chickens with them 100 plus years ago. So when I would do the tour down there, it wasn't paranormal, but the story of the chickens was always a hit. People were like, why are there chickens everywhere? Well, this is why. And I love that. And, I have such deep respect for the people who came here before us and would be blown away by what we do today and by what the city looks like now. And that's something that's always fascinated me. What would somebody from 1900 think walking through downtown Tampa now? They would not recognize it,
That's so interesting you say that, because that's where I tend to go with a lot of the history that I'm digging up from here in this area, especially over in rugby, because it was a English colonization. And you tend to think, what would they think of the way things are now based on how it was back in 1880 when they established the area,
right?
Because some things are so steeped in tradition, they haven't changed very much. And then other things you just wouldn't even recognize.
Absolutely. One of my favorite things about downtown Tampa is, there's a parking garage that's named after an old fort. But when they built the garage, they actually dug up bodies because it was an old cemetery. And this was back in 1980. So, of course, that garage is insanely haunted. And it's one of the stories I tell here in the library. And there's just so many of those interesting, weird pieces of history that were lost that were rediscovered that just make Florida such a cool state to be in.
Absolutely. So let's kind of, since we're talking about storytelling, let's kind of get into your podcast. And so the podcast actually came first, right?
It did. I officially launched the podcast sometime in 2018. And then it took kind of a hiatus during the pandemic, and is back. So it's, even though it's been up around since 18, I'm still pretty young. I'm like 33 episodes in.
Okay.
And I just launched season 4, which you and Christy were a part of. There you are, Scott County Jail. And so it's been a lot of fun to discover these different locations. And one of the gifts of the pandemic for me was video interviews. And I was like, you know what, I can continue doing this and sharing these stories. I don't have to physically go there, even though I want to. And some of these places I have been able to go to, fortunately. So I love storytelling. I love history, and I love getting a little creeped out. So I think that's what sets this podcast apart from a lot of others, is that it's a narrative podcast. So it's like a creepy news broadcast is what I usually say. And I also always put in there with a little asterisk, be gentle on the early episodes. I was learning what I was doing. So don't judge harshly if you start at the beginning. So it's kind of like, here's the story of the Don Vicente Hotel in Ybor City, and owner Tessa saw this in the basement. She tells her story. Then it's actually her voice that comes on and talks about the story, which I really love. And that's kind of where the journalism thing comes from. And then I set some eerie music in the background. But all of those interviews then move on to our YouTube channel. So you can actually see the conversation that I had with these people and where I pulled those clips from, which are much brighter and friendlier sounding than what the actual Phantom History podcast sounds like. And we're actually looking at launching a new podcast based on those interviews to give a wider distribution. So pretty soon we're going to, Phantom's History is going to have a sister podcast. We are just still working on the name.
Oh, that's very nice. And that's what I really enjoyed about being a guest on your podcast, as well as listening to the other shows, was the fact that the way you do put them together, because you do, you can definitely see your background in journalism, and you can it really shines through on your episodes, because they are very well put together, very professionally done. And then tying into the actual stories and the voices of the people from those locations, that's just such a nice touch. And I really appreciated the fact whenever you had both Christy and myself on and put the episode together based on both of our interviews, as well as from your narration and storytelling. It was very well done, and I really enjoyed doing that podcast.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And you were both such great interviews. So both so well spoken. And I do that part, and then Tim does the video editing for us. So like when the little sound bites go up or the actual full interview goes up, he edits those. And if anybody stutters or whatever, and he's like, I didn't have to do any edits on these. These are so easy. They're so great. So we definitely appreciated that, because I'm sure you've experienced, where you'll do an interview and you're like, oh, I don't know what I'm going to do with this. So it's there, but it's challenging. But you two were great. And then, of course, like what's showing now after each of our clips, we always talk about what's going on with bed and breakfast. And anytime I find a cemetery, I will be walking through it.
Oh, absolutely. I know some of my earliest episodes was, or from the early seasons of Ghost Biker, we did a lot of the storytelling part from certain cemeteries around. And it just makes for a great area to walk through and to narrate.
Exactly. It sets the vibe, and it's you feel so historically tied to everything and everybody there. There's times that I'll be doing these. We'll be doing a clip talking about, how you can stay at the bed and breakfast or whatever. And then I'll look at a tombstone and be like, this was a person. Who was this person? And here they are. And that always it hits me. And I always want to do these episodes as respectfully as I can, because, these are real people we're talking about who are now haunting a location, stuck in a location, whatever the case may be. And of course, I don't want them angry with me, of course, but I also want to be respectful of them, just like I want to be respectful of people who are among the living. I think we all deserve that, regardless of where our body may be above or below the dirt. So that's always one of my challenges too, is to find the locations that celebrate their history, like where you are in Scott County. I have a couple others that are coming up. I actually had an interview yesterday with another jail. And this man is incredibly passionate. It's here in Florida. And he took me on a tour on video and everything, showcasing what he's doing with the jail and what he's working on. And you could just feel how tied he was to it, which made me really excited to talk to him.
Oh, that's very cool. And we can't wait to catch up on that. Now, Nancy says, did you research the old Tampa University?
I did, yes. So if you're referring about the University of Tampa, it used to be the Tampa Hotel, which has a tie to the railroad industry. And there's actually an episode of Phantom History where I go in and talk to, it's a museum now, the Henry Plant Museum is there now, in Henry Plant Hall, which is on the university campus. And it's a very, very haunted building. And she had some amazing stories to share. And I also spoke to a volunteer there as well. So yeah, and it's a beautiful, beautiful building overlooking the waterfront of downtown Tampa. It has the spires. It just speaks to you. So I was fascinated to learn more about that. And I'd like to go back because I know there's a lot more on that campus that I have not learned much about yet. But yeah, I think that's from like my very first season. So there's no video to that. I actually did it with the lavalier microphones plugged into my phone.
Yeah.
So that was early on as I was learning, but I got some really, really great information from them.
Very nice.
Yeah.
And like you were talking about with your website or your YouTube channel here, people have a variety of videos to watch where they can watch. I like that you've got the teasers, but you've also got the full interviews, and then you've also got just the audio. So it's a fantastic podcast that I highly recommend folks go and check out. And then you do little shorts from like your travels, correct?
We do. Phantom History on the road. Well, like recently we went to New York City, saw some amazing Broadway plays, went to the Intrepid Aerospace Sea Museum. And then we did a haunted Broadway tour. So we did a quick recap talking about what we saw there and learned all about the haunted theaters, their past. We were fortunate. It was just the two of us on this tour with this amazing tour guide who is also a Broadway actress. So she has some really cool insight. And there's the book. Of course, I got to buy stuff whenever I go on a tour. It was really interesting to get kind of that perspective of Times Square and what was there before and how things have shifted. And all of these, there's so much energy in these old theaters that a lot of that residual and active energy is still there. And I love hearing those stories.
Absolutely. I had no idea about that, about Broadway. The history behind it. It's kind of like when I went to Boston, Massachusetts, I spent a lot of time in Salem and also the Lizzie Borden house. But I got to tell you, the most fascinating place that I just found that I was so intrigued by was the Boston Commons. And the fact, every morning before I would go out and do whatever I was going to do, I would go out and run. And so while I was running there in the Commons, you could feel the energy. And when we did one of the ghost tours, they talked about just all the bodies that were buried under there when they did the subway system, when they turned this into this common area. And so for me, finding out kind of the way the story behind some of these locations of how they started and how maybe they're a brighter kind of open place, where a lot of people spend a lot of time going to Broadway shows, but yet they have kind of this darker history. It's truly fascinating.
It is. You have all this activity going out in front, but there's kind of a dark history behind the scenes or behind the curtain. And these buildings are all so old, which of course adds to that really cool feel and vibe too. And you can only capture so much on video and in photos. You got to take the tour to understand. And as a former tour guide, I'm always looking for those tours, like I said, and encouraging people to see the city that way. Tim is a huge Broadway fan. So again, we got to see 2 or 3 shows, and then to be able to see everything from that perspective was really, really interesting.
Absolutely. So Tim, as far as the paranormal, did you have an interest in the paranormal before you met Steve, or is that something that you kind of
Uh, not really. I got to tell you, I think everybody thinks ghosts are cool and ghost stories are cool. And I was in that crowd, right? And I'm not one to go to super like slasher horror movies, but I love a good suspenseful story or something that has a ghost in it. I love those kinds of stories as well. But I've never been, and I like Halloween. Like I think everybody loves Halloween, but no, not at all like this. I've learned so much about it since we've been doing this and getting to know these wonderful psychic mediums that have come into our lives and have been a part of what we're doing. I've learned a lot, and it's very, very interesting to me. And I love like what you guys are doing and Steve's podcast. I think that's all really, really interesting, but it's not like my thing.
Gotcha. Were you a believer before all of this, or were you kind of
That's a very
more
interesting
skeptical?
question. I would say I do think that there's something there, and I think I believe that there are ghosts around and stuff, but maybe not on the degree that I'm now starting to sort of think, okay, maybe there's more to this, or maybe I just hadn't paid that much attention really. That now I am.
You're welcome.
That's what we always say when we're talking on some of these different podcasts and stuff, that a lot of people experience a lot more than they realize. Maybe they're just not listening or paying attention. It's always happening around us. And really until after kind of the pandemic, when everybody was home and everybody kind of started noticing things in their house and noticing different things happening, I think a lot of that, it's not so much that it just started happening more, but just that we were home and really kind of paying attention.
Yeah, everything shifted and things got quiet. And that's when you notice things. And I think one of the big things for me during the pandemic was towards the end of it, I started relaunching the podcast again and having these conversations. And that's when I started noticing things, the shadows or, an apparition or whatever. I've seen some interesting things. And it was before Phantom History House. It wasn't here. And I had a conversation with one of the investigators on the show, and I can't remember which episode it was. And they said, the more you talk about it, the more the spirits are aware that you're interested and know that you are more likely able to pick up on their communications. And at first I was like, ooh, I don't know if I like that. But I got comfortable with it. And I was like, okay, yes. If I want to learn about the history behind these hauntings and I want to hear about these hauntings, I have to be open to them. So that's kind of where I got that influence from. It's like, okay, I'm an open door. I'm a cracked door. Well, don't get crazy, but I'm a cracked door.
I like that. I like that. Kind of proceed with caution there.
Yes, 100%.
Do you find that a lot of people that come in, do most people have a story that come and stay at the bed and breakfast, or are more people kind of observers that you've noticed?
The first answer is yes. Everybody has a story. But the second part of that is that they're not ready to share right away. And I know Tim has encountered this, and so have I, where they'll come in, they'll get settled, they'll do their thing, they'll go find dinner, and then later on they're just like, they'll come into the library because I'll be in there reading or something, and be just like, I've never told anybody this story before, but when I was a kid, or 2 years ago during whatever, I saw this thing. So that's really rewarding.
Well, one of our goals with creating this space was for it to be sort of a safe space for people to feel like they can do that. And I think that's turned out to be really important for people. I think they sort of kind of feel you out, and they realize, that we have a ghost story to tell too. And they feel comfortable. I think you talk about at the end of a lot of your ghost tours, people will stay and say, well, now that we've talked about ghosts for a while, let me tell you my story. And I can tell you, Miranda, we've had people actually come book a stay here so that they could tell a story to Steve that they've never told anybody their whole life. And that's gratifying to us. Like, we're a safe place where they can finally have that conversation.
Exactly, because they'll tell their friends about something. They're like, "Oh, you're crazy," or "It was your imagination," or "You were sleepy." And one guest in particular pops into my mind. We stayed up till probably midnight, and he was sharing his stories, and he would ask me questions, and sometimes I'd have to be honest and say, "I don't know. I don't know the answer to that, but I'm sure somebody does. Here's some resources. Here's some investigators I know. Here's a psychic medium that's coming to the house. Maybe they can help you." So I'm always very careful to be an ear for people, but also to be honest and say, well, I don't know everything. I don't know a whole lot. We're learning.
But most people, I think, just want that ear. They if they feel comfortable and they get to share that means a lot to people, I think.
Yeah.
It does. And I'm betting the majority of the stories probably start out with, don't think I'm crazy, but.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That's the entry point.
Or I've never told anybody this, but we hear that too.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. And then it will turn into a conversation about what have you seen and have you visited this location? And maybe you should do a podcast here in my home state. And we'll still hear from those guests either through Facebook or Instagram or email or whatever it might be. And they stay in touch. And one of the things I love about this place is, they arrive as a guest and they leave as a friend is kind of how we look at it, because we've shared some really intimate things, that they've experienced and that we've experienced. And I think that bonds people together.
I love that. I absolutely love that. So go ahead and plug. I know we've got a lot of stuff in the show notes, but go ahead and plug where people can find out more information. If they want to book a tour, if they want to listen to the podcast, go ahead and just put all of your socials and all that information out there.
Sure. Well, the best thing is just to go to our website, which is phantomhistory.com. If you want to find out about the house, there's a link there, or you can go to phantomhistoryhouse.com. There's an events tab at the top of those pages that all the stuff we're doing is listed, including we've already got a lot of our Halloween events. We're already up there. We're having some parties and ghost tours and ghost stories by the fire and all kinds of fun stuff's going on. So if you click on the B&B link, you'll see all the things about the different rooms, video tours of the rooms, pictures of the rooms. You can see all that stuff. If you go to the events tab, that's there. There's a tab for Halloween under the bed and breakfast tab as well.
Okay.
Yeah. And of course, if you want to listen to any of the podcast episodes, you can click on the episodes link.
They are all there.
And that ties into Buzzsprout, which hosts the podcast, but you can also listen on iTunes and Apple Podcasts and all those fun spots too. And like I said earlier, we're going to have a very busy September and October, and at some point we will sleep. But
and also on the Phantom History YouTube channel, the podcast episodes and a lot of the every time he does a podcast episode, I'm sure you said this, there's also a full interview where there's so much more stuff that gets heard and said that's really interesting. So all of that's available on the YouTube channel as well.
Yeah, and of course we're all over social media, Facebook, Instagram, everywhere we're called Phantom History, TikTok. And just recently joined, what's the new one that Instagram just launched today? Threads.
But let's not give them that much.
We're now on Threads.
By the way, our guest that I just went to check in is very excited about being a part of the seance on Saturday night. We're having a seance here at the Phantom History House. So he's very excited about being a part. I think he was like, he wanted to make sure that nothing was going to jump out at him tonight. And yet he booked the Ouija board room, everybody. So
it's perfect.
It's good for him. So we're excited to have anybody that's just looking for a nice place to stay. But he was like, wow, this is really nice. And I'm not,
the Ouija board room comes with a Ouija board. So you are welcome to use it while you're there. So
yeah, he was not having the Ouija board.
He
did not want to have to deal with that. But he did book the Ouija board room, which is our nicest, biggest room. So,
yeah.
I guess you'll know more in the morning how.
We will.
He might, if he decides to play with it or not, we'll see.
So, well, thank you guys again so much for coming on and sharing about the bed and breakfast as well as your podcast and everything you all have going on. I can't wait to follow up later on and kind of see how things are going here in the fall whenever all of your Halloween events are kicked off.
Thank you so much. And thank you so much for inviting us on and sharing our story with the people who follow you and all your great work. And, anytime you find your way down to Tampa,
come down, come see the house. We would love to show it off. Anybody that's watching this at any time, please come down and check it out. Go to our website and check it out and come down and visit. We would love to talk ghost stories and
absolutely give you
share
some
notes. Yeah.
Yes. I'd love to come on and be able to do a podcast live from there. That would be.
We would love it.
Yes, I love that.
We have very strong Wi-Fi, so we can make that happen.
Nice. Well, if you'll hold on for just a minute, I'm going to pop you off here, say some goodbyes, and then we'll speak before we get off here. But again, thank you all so much for coming on.
Appreciate it.
All right. Talk to you soon. All right. So definitely, guys, go on there, like, follow, subscribe. We've got all the different links. Like they said, you can find them on Instagram. You can find them on TikTok, Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, lots of places to go follow their show. And as a content creator, it's one of those things that, it's very, very important to go on, support other content creators and the work that they're doing, because it's a lot of work to put videos out, as well as putting in the time to make these locations and stuff great for the guests who are coming to stay there. So definitely go check those out, follow those pages. We really definitely do appreciate that. And as Sonia says, she wants to stay in the cemetery room, so definitely go check out the Phantom History House. And as I said earlier, different events that are coming up. Don't forget the Gettysburg Battlefield Bash. That's going to be July 14th through 16th. We will be closed here at the jail on Thursday, which is July 13th through July 17th. So we will be closed all next week. Our weeks here at the jail run Thursday through Monday. So we will be closed for that, as going to be going up there representing Ghost Biker Explorations and the jail. Dr. Christy Sumner, my business partner, she's going to be traveling with me and doing the representing the jail up there. So excuse me. So definitely come and see us there in Gettysburg. And then also don't forget about the Deep South Paracomic-Con, August 19th through 20th. And it's going to be in Ozark, Alabama. So going to be a great time at both of those events that are going on there. And I believe the I forget what the funds for the Deep South Paracon go to. We will find that, and we will also put that website up there. But it's you can find that under Deep South Paracomicon.com. If you just go and Google it, you will find all of that information, as well as being able to get tickets and such for that. Again, don't forget, historic rugby lantern tours. We still have a few tickets left for this coming weekend, Saturday and Sunday nights. So, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday nights, we still have tickets for. I think we have a full tour tomorrow night that we have tickets available for. We've not sold any for that just yet, but we do still have a few tickets available for Saturday and Sunday. So definitely go and check that out on our page. Also, the historic ScottCoJail.com page, as well as Historic Scott County Jail Facebook page. Come on, book a flashlight tour or a private paranormal investigation here at the jail. Also, next week we will not have a Ghost Biker Garage Live, because we will be traveling up to Gettysburg. We may end up going live, but we will not have a guest. It's all just going to depend on how the travel goes, because traveling here from East Tennessee all the way up to Gettysburg is going to be quite a long trip, but we may end up going live either on the drive or once we get up there. We'll just kind of see how things go on that. But then the next week on the 20th, that's when we will be back, and we'll be live with author Jessica York. She's from the Chattanooga, Tennessee area. So I can't wait to have her on to talk about her books and all the cool things that she has going on here here coming up over the next little bit. So until next week, time is really the most precious thing that we have. And so I really, really appreciate the time that you all have spent here with me this evening. And so until next week, I hope everyone has a great week, and we'll be talking to y'all very, very soon. Take care.